I'm not a gambling man, but if there's one bet I'd make without question, it's that you possess intelligence far greater than you realize. You read books, you buy courses, and if it's not always fast as you would like, you grasp complex concepts, more than enough to survive in this world. And yet, you're also smart enough to know deep down inside that you could be so much better. Me too. And I'll tell you in a bit why that feeling never goes away. Not even for the best of the best. For now, a huge part of the problem, quite likely for yourself if you want to become better at teaching yourself new things, is that you struggle to bridge the gap between knowing a thing and being the person who can execute that knowledge in context. This is the dark side of autodidacticism. And in part, it is the collector's fallacy. This is the belief that when you're teaching yourself, collecting information is the same as acquiring skills. Another part is analysis paralysis, which is not a great problem to have in a fast-moving world where people are making and breaking things around you while you're standing still, isolated from the game. So in this video, I'm going to deconstruct exactly why very, very smart individuals get stuck in analysis paralysis and choose collecting books and courses instead of developing the skills contained by them. Then I'm going to show you how to treat your brain like a machine or a system. And then you'll know a little bit about why it's never, ever enough and why that's okay. So I'm going to borrow a concept from Ray Dalio's Principles, one that was very helpful for me in developing the Magnetic Memory Method project during a phase of it. And once that's through, I'm going to give you the exact 4-step protocol from my book, The Victorious Mind, a very simple, action-oriented, step-by-step model that will fix all these problems of analysis paralysis and so on. So if you are tired of being the smartest person in the room with nothing to show for it, please pay attention. You're about to get smarter and get moving. Now, I'm not especially a fan of Ray Dalio, and I did not particularly love this book. I didn't hate it either, but here's an idea from Ramit Sethi. And I've found this very, very useful in my own reading, and it's just so beautiful. He basically says if you only get one idea from a book that costs $40, well, instead of whining about it, call it a $40 idea. If a book has 2 ideas or 10 ideas, well, you do the math. The point is to stop valuing books on their price and start valuing books on their ideas. Start valuing the stones, in other words, not the sand. Frankly, I think that the one model in Dalio's Principles we're going to talk about today is worth more like $4 million, like easily, right? So I've enjoyed thinking about it, and enjoyment is value. But it has created a mental model I never heard anywhere else, and it's helped me have a discipline that has assisted me in staying the course as I teach myself as an autodidact. And, you know, it's just super valuable because I needed a certain set of skills rather than constantly chasing each new shiny idea that I find in the market or that I have in my own brain. Because believe me, I've got more ideas than I can handle, more than I could possibly ever pursue in a lifetime. And I think you probably know what that's like. And I understand how tempting it is for my students in the Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass and my one-on-one coaching clients to stick with the program. I had to train myself to do it. And the mental model in Principles helped me get even better at sticking with the program. Okay, so what is this special idea? Well, Dalio basically says that many successful people are system builders, but the systems have to work systematically. Just because you build a system doesn't mean the system you built is systematic. And that means that there's going to be multiple moving parts, and part of the idea is to have as few moving parts as possible so you can do 2 things. One is to keep an eye on all those parts, and then the other is to learn how to fine-tune the details of each part so that your systems can truly be systematic, which means that they can truly produce the best possible outcomes. And here's why a lot of autodidacts and would-be polymaths fall short. They either don't have a learning system at all, or they treat learning as magic, not mechanics. They think that if you read enough, the skills and the knowledge will spontaneously generate. That is 100% false. No, you need to treat learning systematically, and it has to have a system that can be systematized, because systems don't necessarily have a syntax, as Marshall McLuhan put it. That's the question of an array of knobs in a system. Do they make sense? That's what he means by syntax. And if they don't make sense, well, then you can tweak all those knobs all that you want. It's not going to help you dial things down. So the system has to be systematizable, right? So if you're not getting the results that you want from your learning activities, you don't have to start by throwing your system out. You can test it and see which parts, which knobs don't need to be there, which knobs might need to be moved around. Then you can fine-tune, and you can fine-tune first and then, make the decision. The point is that it's the same thing with thinking and overthinking. In fact, when you think without a thinking system, you start to spiral. If you want to develop thinking systems, well, here's one thing you can do right now. Get subscribed to this channel if you aren't already, and make a note to search up my video on the main thinking types. It will help you start to develop a thinking system that is systematizable, that can be seen at a glance in your mind, that can allow you to turn the knobs for fine-tuning. And that way, instead of hoarding PDF files and watching endless hours of tutorials without ever writing a line of code, without ever actually getting a deck of cards in your hands and memorizing it, because you're always thinking about these activities, you're going to start using your thinking system to think your way out of the loop and actually start doing. Now you might be saying, oh, but Anthony, you're not telling me which thinking system to develop or which knobs should be in my system. And you're right. But do you see the problem? I mean, there's a real problem in thinking that someone's going to hand you such a thing. If you're thinking that thought, this is my point. You need to stop thinking and start engineering. Thousands of people watch my videos, so I know very few of them, and I think it would be false for me to throw out a thinking system for one and all and say, here's the way to think, right? No, you need to step in and engineer it and build it up with the knobs that you're going to tweak. And you need to treat all of this as a deeply personal enterprise and help yourself. I mean, I have the most amazing coaching clients, course participants, and book readers. And the only difference that I can see between those who get the results they're looking for and those who don't is that the people getting results are willing to work on building their own systems, and a variety of systems, but systems that can be seen at a glance in the mind and can be fine-tuned. And they do it all based on study and practice of the systems themselves. So let me give you one of my systems that I shared with my students years ago in the Victorious Mind, and that they tell me helped them a lot. It's the F.R.E.E. model. F.R.E.E. You can make a dashboard, or you can experiment with making a dashboard out of it and use each part of the F.R.E.E. model as your knobs. So what are the knobs? Well, the first knob is F, frequent practice. So let's face it, learners like you and I, we rely on intensity. That's why we're so tempted to cram, to binge learn. But we know this fails. From a memory perspective, it falls flat every time. We have to study and practice producing knowledge frequently because the brain requires frequency to build myelin sheaths around your neurons. Now, I'm not a neuroscientist myself, but I've done my best to understand what happens in the brain as you learn. And it's essentially like a garden in there. You need to water the dendritic spines, so to speak. These run along neurons, and they can stand up tall and strong when they're well taken care of. And that means that if you only practice proper learning techniques for 5 hours once a week, which is binging, which I'm tempted to do, well, you lose. But if you practice 20 minutes every day, you win, especially when you're using the magnetic Mary method in the mix. So the reality here is that you got to turn that frequency knob up and turn the short-term intensity knob down. And the second knob is R, in F.R.E.E. And that is to learn in a state of relaxation. Not so much that you fall asleep, of course, just enough to quiet the wandering mind. You cannot learn if you are defensive or stressed. Stress produces cortisol, which inhibits the hippocampus, which is a major memory center in the brain. If you are grinding, you are breaking the machine. Now, there is a place for grinding, and I find that that is in production. When I write, I grind. But when it comes to learning and implementing, well, you got to engineer relaxation into the protocol. And I also relax when I'm writing, even though I grind, right? But when learning, if you're not relaxed, the data is less likely to stick in your mind and fall into formation. And that's what information is. It's data that has fallen into a particular formation. And if you get it aligned properly, well, it aligns where? It aligns on a ledge. That's where you put knowledge, on a ledge. Knowledge. I'll be here all night. But the reality is that this is so super important. Relax, relax, relax. And yes, there is the risk that some of the relaxation techniques that I teach in the Victorious Mind will put you to sleep. But when people have said, I did this and I fell asleep, I always just think, well, good. Don't you need more sleep? I could certainly use more sleep. I don't think there's a bad thing in getting more sleep at all. But just keep in mind that you can twiddle that knob, fine-tune it in your system so that you use techniques to relax yourself without falling asleep. It just takes a bit of practice. All right, the third knob is E in F.R.E.E., F-R-E-E, F.R.E.E. Experimentation is the first E. Listen to this point very closely, please. Smart people do not like looking stupid. And as a result, many of them fail to experiment because when you experiment, you often fall flat on your face. But when you don't test because you're obsessing over theory to avoid the pain of a failed practical attempt, you lose. You lose. But when you're teaching yourself new topics or skills, you need to treat every study session as an experiment. You need to treat every time you open your mouth as an experiment. I recite a lot of information from memory all the time, and sometimes I really do make tragic mistakes, and I don't know why all the time. It's a bit of a mystery. The memory techniques definitely work, but in this case, how do you exactly twiddle the knobs? Well, there's a couple of things that you can do. For one thing, and it's a lesson I never have quite learned, but I don't mind making the mistake because I like to keep it real, is, don't recite from memory when you're really tired. And I still like to do it, though. And I'll tell you why. I don't want to adjust the system necessarily. I want to learn what it's like to make mistakes when you're tired and just be honest about it, but then think, okay, so I was tired, but what could I do next time so that I'm not making that mistake, that I am reciting it perfectly? Maybe I need to breathe a little bit more when I'm tired. Maybe I need to put my eyes in a particular direction. I don't know what it is, but I won't be able to figure it out if I don't experiment. Experiment, experiment, experiment. And when you're in that state of relaxation that we talked about, it's going to be all that more easy for you to experiment. Now, I don't know all the experiments that you should run, but for me, execution is the ultimate experiment. Without execution, you don't have any data to refine. So ship it, whatever it is. Write that book, get it in front of readers so that you can get feedback. Release the song. I don't know what it is, but get it out there. Experiment. Be willing to fall flat on your face so that you have the data. Because remember, data can be placed in formation and put on the ledge of knowledge so that you can develop wisdom that will help you make better decisions in the first place. But no experimentation, no wisdom for you. The fourth knob is E for entertainment. If you are bored, your machine definitely runs out of fuel. And I can tell you, I don't like being bored. Now, I'm rarely bored, but it does happen sometimes. There are books that I would rather not read. But when I have to learn things that I don't naturally enjoy, I engineer entertainment into the process. Not to distract myself, but to engage, and usually through the use of the magnetic Mary method. I know that the magnetic Mary method has to be learned, but once you learn it, wow, it's so much fun. Any material that feels dry, the magnetic Mary method instantly gamifies it. It just instantly makes even the most tedious information visceral. And being able to rapidly place information into your long-term memory is itself entertaining, right? And, I'm memorizing a line from Shakespeare now. It's quite late at night as I'm recording this, and I'm tired. But, it's just providence and sparrow are words that are coming back to me from Hamlet. And it's just so much fun to think about the people that I'm using in this. Like Sparrow, of course, is Clarice Starling from the Hannibal Lecter stories. And providence, that word, is, wow, just Prostar was the nickname that we gave a girl in high school, Pam Prostar. So that's what I put there in the Mary Palace. And even though I'm a little bit too tired to actually recall the line, or, I can experiment, I can try, but that's not my point right now. I'm actually really overjoyed and entertained with the fact that those two words are there. And I think the end of the line is the readiness is everything, or the readiness is all. Yeah, it's the readiness is all. Now, why I remember that and why I'm so entertained by it is that I know it must be all because in the Mary Palace, I placed an album from the punk rock band All, and so that must be what it was. So I am entertained by the process, even though I actually haven't memorized it well enough to recite those lines, and I know that I haven't, so it's not really worth the experiment. But in a way, that's what I'm doing. I'm experimenting now, and after this, I'll go and check, is Providence and Sparrow really in there? The word fall is in there also. The point is just think of it, just look at my face. I'm having fun, right? And that's what you can do. Make it entertaining, and you will avoid the fatal error of trying to build castles of wisdom on a swamp of disinterest. Make yourself more interested by harnessing your imagination. Train your imagination. That's what we do in the Magnetic Mary Method world. Now, I've got one more major tip that I know will help you. So with thanks to all you beautiful subscribers for your support, people who have read my books, people who come to the live boot camps, who have the Magnetic Mary Method Masterclass, I want to invite you to one of my upcoming live learning boot camps. So to make sure you don't miss any of these opportunities, sign up for notifications using the link in the description below, and I will send you my self-education blueprint. It includes a very special training called the Autodidact Advantage. And this is a behind-the-scenes video walkthrough of how you can transform scattered curiosity into unstoppable deep focus. So that's at magneticmarymethod.com/SEB for self-education blueprint. Okay, so for my final tip, let's start by dimensionalizing the problem that the tip solves. Many people fail to learn completely new things from scratch on their own because they approach it with no tether to reality. But something to note in Dalio's principles is that he builds systems based on processes he has already verified through research, through testing, through making sure they're already available for him to build systems that he can hold in his mind and twiddle the knobs with some relationship to his existing skill set, right? His existing competence. You need to do the same. In fact, the simple factor I've identified that binds the most interesting and successful polymaths I've studied is simply that they build their skills from existing competence. And for you, what does that mean? Well, I don't know exactly, but if you study your existing skill set before you march off to learn a new one, you'll be able to see if you can build a bridge. And I'll give you a personal example that involves thinking, but not overthinking, that led me to a choice and a sacrifice. I really wanted to go to law school, and I also really thought of going to acting school. Even though I'm nearing my 50s, there's all kinds of lawyers I'm aware of who got their start at this stage in life, actors who just emerged out of nowhere at an older age, novelists, etc. One of my favorite mnemonists, Peter of Rowena, was a memory master and a jurist in the 15th century, or jurist, sorry, a little bit of German slip through there. And, I just look into all these systems and I'm tempted all the time. Do this, do that. And I just worked on a book by Peter of Rowena. And I just thought, man, I would like to go to law school. And if not that, go acting, right? But I have so many systems with so many knobs to tweak right now that I realized that I simply can't introduce something new that would slow down the physical Memory Palace project I already started. And why that I started that project of building a bookshop is because it's more connected to the things I know already, such as marketing and selling books, essentially, right? And I could go learn the law basically from scratch. I mean, I like to watch law programs and so on, but let's call a spade a spade. I really don't even know the fundamentals of the law and the logic that structures it, the history, etc., and all the things that go into it, right? So without getting into a much longer story about all the nooks and crannies of my thought process, I did exactly what I suggest you do. Even if the physical Memory Palace project with its bookshop in it is the slower and harder path of adding this new thing that would have this amazing set of short-term dopamine spikes. Oh, I started law school. Oh, I'm an actor now. Like all this Disneyland of blah, blah, blah. I just made the decision to build based on the existing competence and the existing platform. That's something Waqas Ahmed talks about in his book, The Polymath, is that so many polymaths that succeed have some sort of platform that they either developed or happened upon by accident or however they got there, but they built on the basis of having a platform. So going to law school would isolate skills instead of integrating them as fully as possible. Because what the heck does the law have to do with being a memory educator and popularizer of memory techniques? Well, I could certainly give proof to some people who would be interested. Oh, yeah, that guy memorized a bunch of stuff about the law, but I don't want to learn the law, so what, right? Got to think bigger, right? So it would throw a wrench into the free model, and I would have a lot harder time twiddling the knobs. So you get what I'm saying here? All right. You now have one of the most powerful schematics I know based on just one of Dalio's principles in this book. And you have the free model that I shared with you from the Victorious Mind. You know that learning is a machine, and you know that you can build little systems, and you can turn knobs, and you can try out the free model. Frequency of practice in a state of relaxation and a spirit of experimentation, so you can be endlessly entertained because you have the magnetic memory method on your side. Just remember that nothing really changes unless and until you actually install the operating system. You have no knobs to fine-tune until you do. So, get my self-education blueprint, and it's not going to force you to build any systems, but it is going to educate you, and it is definitely for people who want to execute and could use a bit of help from someone who is walking this path right along with you, who is seduced by all the same things, but has used the things we've talked about today to stay the course. And you know what? If you're not ready to stop collecting new information, you're not ready to start engineering your mind yet by clicking a linkety-link, but you would like to check out more of my channel, I would recommend that you watch my video on how to become an autodidact next. Heck, do both. Even if it's for the second time, watch it again. Remember, frequency. The F in the ultimate formula that will set you free to become the architect of your dreams is frequency. So stop overthinking. Start building those systems. And as I always like to say, thank you as always. And until we have a chance to meet again, keep yourself magnetic.